Hello everyone. In this series of videos I'm going to be working through a practice assessment for Achievement Standard 1.4 or Linear Algebra. I'm going to start with this video by showing you or giving you some tips as to how you can break down the assessment task description into more manageable parts. And then later on I'm going to be working through the actual assessment and showing you some worked solutions and hopefully how to present this in a way that you are conveying your mathematical knowledge to whoever it is who is reading it. So the very first thing that happens when you get your assessment description is you're going to have to read it. I would suggest that you read it relatively quickly at first, do a first reading. You skim through and essentially you're looking to identify different parts of the task description. The first thing is obviously the actual task itself. So as we scroll down here, I can see that there is a heading called task at the top there. You know what that is, and perhaps just a brief glimpse of a brief rundown of exactly what's in the task, and then as you go on towards the bottom, there are some provided resources, a resource information section, and essentially that's it. So once you've skimmed through that, you go back to the beginning again, and this time, hopefully with a highlighter, you go through and you highlight the bits that are important. Now I've already highlighted the heading task, but there are specific requirements in the task that you need to be able to do in order to get yourself these credits. So your very first task is to understand exactly what you're required to do, and that means having to read very carefully what the task is. So as we run through this particular assessment task, the most important bits are the bits that are labeled or are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. The language that's used there says that you've got to do these bits. So it says represent the 3 taxi companies' charges using the same representation. For example, 3 equations or 3 graphs with the same variables and scale. So the very first thing you need to do here is make sure that you have some way of comparing the 3 taxi companies, either using 3 equations or 3 graphs. All right, so that's the very first thing we need to do, or you need to do. The second, and here it is here, number 2, is to be able to recommend which taxi company to use for a trip of 2 of the common destinations. Now, in your earlier reading, you would have noted that in the resource section at the bottom there is a table for distances to some common destinations. Right, so you would immediately, your brain says, all right, I've seen that before, it's at the bottom there, so you've got some understanding of what I'm required to do. So basically here, all right, you're going to have to pick 2 of those destinations, and you're going to have to work out for each of the 3 taxi companies, you're going to have to work out the costs it's going to involved in going there, and from that you're going to be in position to be able to recommend the best taxi company by looking at the cheapest option. The third task requirement is to recommend distances for which it would be cheapest to use the all-white taxi company. All right, so in here, all you're doing is you're looking at the all-white taxi company and asking yourself the question, when is it the best time, or for what distances will this option be the best? When is the all-white taxi company the cheapest? And the fourth requirement for the task is to look at the all-black taxi company and describe at least 2 different ways that the all-black taxi company can be the cheapest or could be the cheapest taxi company people can use to travel to any destination. So this is a bit of an open-ended um, problem. And what you need to do here is obviously you need to be able to show your your logic very carefully. There are no right and wrong answers here, but what's important is how you're thinking about it. So remember, for this final component for the task, you need to describe two different ways, right? At least two different ways um, to recommend to the All Black Taxi Company how they could make it the cheapest company for all those destinations that are listed down the bottom here. And you got to make sure that you clearly lay out your working so that it's easy for anybody who's reading it to understand and believe you. Now that you've read through the task description and you've located the components that you need to satisfy, what you need to do, or a good thing to do once you've finished this, is to just actually try and summarize it in your head. What are the things I'm required to do? Well, the first thing is I need to have three representations of each of these taxi company charges. I've got to recommend. Second one is got to recommend which taxi company to use for two of the destinations at the bottom there. All right, so the ones at the bottom. Which companies would I use for two of these destinations? So I'll have to pick two of them and then find out which is the cheapest taxi company. And third is to look at the all-white taxi company and try and work out whether or not there are any distances for which they are the cheapest option. And the last one is how to improve the all-black taxi company so that they are the cheapest option for any distance. All right, and once you've done that, then you're ready to begin.